Did you know in 2024, over 1 million people over the age of 62 decided to take early Social Security? Well, in this video, I'm going to share with you 5 things that you need to do if you're among those who are going to turn 62 in 2025 and are planning to take Social Security. It's something I did back last year in 2024, and I've got experience, and I want to share that with you because there are plenty of traps that you may walk into, and if you don't know, not only would it potentially delay your benefit, you may end up getting the wrong benefit. So hang on to number 5 until we get to number 5, because through experience, I want to share with you some tips that will help you take advantage of the benefits that are due you. So this is Hanging Out with Popsie Guy. It's a beautiful day here in Northwest Florida, but it's something that's been on my mind for a while because I'm watching the news and I'm listening to the discussion of people who are over the age of 60, 62, even 65, who are fearing layoffs. They've been working for 25, 30 years in the same job, but the rumor mill has it that they're on the cutting block and they're not ready to do that. They may not be ready because of financial reasons, or they may not be ready because they just like to work. So in this video, we'll talk about what you should do if you want to continue to work, but also receive Social Security benefits. I know growing up that I was told I'm going to be on the cusp. There may not even be a Social Security when you retire, young man, so just continue to retire and put money aside. And that's the advice a lot of people are giving the Gen Xers and those behind us, is put as much money aside as you can. But you know what? We live in very, very interesting times now. Having a full-time job that pays enough to manage all the living expenses is a hard thing to do, and I recognize that. There are a lot of people who are struggling, and when they retire, they just haven't put enough money aside to have the lifestyle they wanted. So thank God there is Social Security, and as you well know, it's not designed to replace your full income. Maybe 25 or 30% of the income that you were earning while you were living. But here are the 5 things. Let's get to it. First one, my sense is that because you're on YouTube, you're pretty well adjusted to the world of the internet, but get online, go to SSA.gov and create your own My Retirement account, my SSA.gov account. For 2 reasons. One is you'll have access to all the documents that used to be mailed to you. Your work history, benefit verification letters, all those things you get instantaneously. And secondly, if you're able to apply online, which I highly recommend, it's the most, it's a process that is better than getting on the phone or trying to make an appointment in the office. So do that first. First things first, get online, set up your SSA.gov account immediately. The second thing that you need to do if you're considering retiring and getting retirement benefits from Social Security is apply 3 months before your 62nd birthday. And why is that important? Is because if you do that and you meet all the requirements and the criteria, your Social Security check will start the month following the month that you turn 62. Here's what happened to Popsie Guy. I don't know how it happened, but I think I screwed up. When you're in there and you're applying for benefits, you'll have the option of when to start your benefits, because some folks are not going to start right at 62. They see their benefit statement and it may make sense for them to wait until later in the year that they turn 62. You can choose the month that you want to receive your benefits. I think I chose September, which meant I didn't get my first benefit check until October, which was a surprise to me, but it all worked out. So just be very careful when you're applying that you put the month that you want your first benefit check to start, and it won't happen unless you apply 3 months before. That's the earliest that you can apply, and you get all the required information. So that's number 2, make sure that you get that done. So the third one I think is the most onerous one for most people, because it depends on your personal situation, the information that Social Security will require to not only verify your identity and that you are a U.S. citizen, but they also want to verify your work history and whether or not, if you're filing on a spouse's record, your own record, and whether or not you've had previous marriages. So it can be kind of complicated depending on your situation. So be prepared to, number one, know where you were born, right? The city and the state and the year that you were born. And number two, to be able to furnish, if necessary, a birth certificate or marriage licenses. And the marriage licenses, again, are for those who may be applying on an ex-spouse's account, things of that nature. So be prepared. Make sure you've got those documents handy, because it'll be very frustrating for you to go through the whole process and then be told, we cannot complete your application because you don't have this form. So go on SSA.gov after you've created your account, and there is a very well documented section on what you'll need to do and what you need to have in order to apply. The second one is make sure you've got your bank info. Not only did I pick the wrong month, but once I figured it out, I was waiting for my check and it didn't show up. Midnight, the night before, the day that the money's supposed to hit, I'm on my account, it's not there. I'm like, oh, if anybody's gonna get this messed up, it's me. So I get on the phone the next day and they say, oh yeah, no, everything should be fine. You call your bank, it's your bank's fault, not our fault. So I called the bank. Social Security gave me this 17-digit tracking number. I called the bank and they said, we have no idea what that number is for. So go back to Social Security and get a 13-digit number, which I did. It's like calling the IRS. I called, I got a second person on the line with Social Security who was a little bit more gruff, wanted to know why I was calling the office that was across the state that I'm in. I said, dude, I'm just using the 800 number you gave me. And he goes, all right, fine, I already know what happened. I gave him the information. They transposed your bank information. I said, who's they? He said, whoever manually typed in this information for you to get your check. I said, oh, okay. He said, well, this is what I recommend. Go to your Social Security office and talk to them and have them do it. So I had to do that. Anyway, here's the point. When you're applying for benefits, any mistake that you make in the paperwork is going to mess up your benefits. So please take the time that you need. And this is why I'm recommending at least 3 months, 3 months before you turn 62 that you start this. As I said, you might have to have proof of work history, your latest tax returns, things of that nature. They will tell you what you need. So don't just pick up the phone or walk into an office or go online unprepared. It'll dwarf the process and it'll frustrate you. It's actually an easy process when you do it the way they say. Here's another thing. This is number 4, and then number 5 I'll spend the most time on. When you sign up for your SSA.gov account, you'll have access to your work history and how Social Security determines your benefits. It's a convoluted formula. It has to do with the average index monthly earnings, yada, yada, yada. You need to be an actuary to understand it. But they, in essence, use your top 35 years of work. So you'll be able to print out your work history according to Social Security and see your top 35. And when you do that, or you do it on the computer, you'll be able to see that there are 2 columns. One is your Social Security wage base, and the second column is the Medicare wage base. And you've been working a long time, so Evan, you know that over time, those 2 numbers are not the same. And as a matter of fact, right now there is discussion in Congress, as there always is, about raising the eligibility, not eligibility, but the income limit to have Social Security and Medicare taxed. It used to be capped. If you made a certain amount of money, over that you were not taxed for Medicare, right? But that number's going up. So there will be a difference in the numbers, maybe only in a couple of years if you're my age, because my earnings weren't that much. But I did notice in a couple of good years that my earnings for Social Security and the earnings for Medicare were different. The earnings on the left is the number that the Social Security Department is going to use to help you understand what your benefit is. But it's your responsibility to go through those 35 years. Not that you're going to have 35 years of tax returns, you may, but to verify, do they look right? Is there something off? And then it's your responsibility to contact them. They will fix the record as long as you can demonstrate it. And if that number that you have is higher than the number they have, that will impact positively your monthly benefit. So number 4 is make sure you look at your work history, because that is the number that will determine your monthly Social Security retirement benefit amount at age 62. All right, number 5, get ready. So there's a lot of talk, as I mentioned at the beginning, about people getting laid off. I've been laid off. Chances are that people you know or somebody you or even yourself has been laid off. You know, what's the old joke? A recession is when your neighbor gets laid off, and a depression is when you get laid off. Because that's the truth. All of a sudden, the income that you were expecting stops. And now you go into panic mode. Do I have enough money in my 401k or my IRA to make ends meet? Should I take early Social Security? What a lot of people are finding out is really two things. One is they're not ready to stop working. They've just been asked not to come into the office anymore. And number two is, they enjoy working, but they also need the money. Okay? That's kind of the situation that I find myself in. And I've said this for years, if you've known me at all, that I'll continue to work as long as I can. Not because I need the money. The money is good. I mean, I do need the money. But I just can't see myself sitting in front of the TV, flipping through old movies for 8 hours a day, going to bed, waking up 4 or 5 times, and then starting that process all over again. It just doesn't seem like an appealing life to me. So I continue to work. So here's what I want to talk about. You can continue to work when you're age 62, but Social Security they will limit, as you well know, how much money you can earn while you're working. And there are 2 numbers that you need to know. Pay attention, because it's not talked about a lot, and I want to make sure you understand, because this can trip you up. If you retire mid-year, let's say your birthday, like mine, is in the middle of the year, and you're working up to that point, you can make as much money as you want up to that point, then you start receiving benefits. It could be any number, and there's no penalty for you. But as soon as you receive your first Social Security check and you continue to work, you can only earn a gross income of $1,950 per month. So be very careful if you're going to continue to work, whether it's part-time or some variation thereof, that your earnings stay below $1,950 a month for the rest of the year. You'll be receiving your Social Security check, but you'll also be receiving wages from work. And if you exceed that amount, Social Security will then limit your check going forward. Matter of fact, what they'll do is they will withhold $1 for every $2 that you went over. And it's not like your next check will be lower. You won't get a next check. You understand? They don't just reduce it, they just stop the benefit. And then all of a sudden you're looking for your Social Security check, and it's where is it? Oh, well, you went over the limit. And well, where's my money? Well, you'll get your money, but you'll have to wait until your full retirement age to get it. So don't fall into that trap. Be very, very careful. But once you're into your first full year of retirement, for example, it's January of the following year, and you're continuing to work, it's an annual limit. And this year it's $23,400. So be very careful if you're going to continue to work part-time that your monthly earnings are less than $1,950. And then in the following year, if you continue to work, that you're in, and this is today's dollars, it's less than $23,400. That number has always been indexed for inflation, just like everything but the tax on Social Security. So you'll see a 2 or 3%, whatever the CPI is, increase in that ceiling. So that's the other thing I want to make sure you understand. Here's a bonus tip that nobody talks about, and I want you to understand this. If you're like me and my wife, we enjoy working. We're okay with it. If you have your work history, your 35 top years, and let's say you were not a high income earner, and I'm not going to use anybody specific, but let's say it's a household where there was a stay-at-home parent, and their earnings weren't that great, but they're still top 35 years are used to figure out the monthly benefit. If that person continues to work in retirement and they make more than their highest 35, that number is chopped off and replaced by the number they're making. That was confusing. Let me try again. Let's use real numbers. Let's say that $23,400 is what you earn part-time in 2025, but your top 35 to determine your benefit included numbers like 16,500, 17,000, 20,000. Those numbers will be dropped, and the 23,400 that you earn this year will be added, and then your benefit will be readjusted. You don't have to do anything. Social Security does this annually, and you will receive a notice somewhere late fall whether or not your benefit has been adjusted. Okay? That's why it's very, very important that you don't exceed the earnings, because you'll lose benefit, but you also make sure that you look at what your 35-year record was, so that there's hope that your benefit can actually be increased because you're working. Did you know that? Not a lot of people know that. And I'm going to end it with this, and I don't want to go on a diatribe, but I'm going to let you know how I feel. And I'm going to do a whole video on this, I think, is that there's a current myth that's been around for a long, long time that Social Security is double taxed. Well, that's not really true. Social Security is triple taxed, okay? During your work years, you were paying into Social Security. When you're receiving Social Security benefits, there's a high likelihood that you're in that 50% plus range of retirees who have to pay income tax on their Social Security. Here's the third tax, and I just discussed it. If you continue to work and earn wages, you're paying into the Social Security system. That's why it's so important. That's triple tax, okay? That's why it's so important to know your work history, and if you continue to work, that you will have an increase in your benefit because you're continuing to pay it. That's the good news, and I want you to hold on to that, because things are pretty shaky in our economy right now. I have full faith in this country that we will pull ourselves out of it. I said this in videos in the past, ones about Doge and Elon and everything that was happening months ago, is that we're going to figure our way out of this, but there's going to be pain, and we're feeling the pain right now. So just be confident that you live in the best country in the world, that we will figure this out, that the promise made to us retirees will not be broken. I guarantee you, and you can mark this video, that Social Security will never go bust. Yes, in 2035, it's suggested that it will go bankrupt. That doesn't mean they're going to stop paying you Social Security. It just means the benefit that you're receiving right now is going to be at least 30 or if not more % less than you're receiving. So plan for that. Let's just plan for it, right? We planned our whole lives. Let's not stop planning right now. If you're physically, mentally, and soulfully able to work, go ahead and work. There's a lot of work out there for us old folks, because we have wisdom, we have knowledge, and you know what? Here's the other secret. We show up. So thank you very much for showing up to this edition of Hanging Out with Popsie Guy. Do me the honor of liking the video, subscribe if you haven't already. Drop me a comment and let me know what you think. Maybe you've been through this, and we can all learn from your experiences. So another beautiful day here in Florida. Today is a day I don't have to work, so I'm going to enjoy it. I hope you enjoy your day too. Bye-bye.